Thank you, Rabbi Sherman. Thank you very much. It's my privilege and my honor to be here for the second time in a very short time. I think I was here, I know I was here, I think 1 year ago, maybe 1 year and a half, when my film, my documentary shot on the battlefield of Ukraine was presented in Los Angeles. And it's the second time I'm in front of you. It's my privilege to be able to wish a great bar mitzvah to Daniela and Salomon. Am I right? Yeah. Voilà. I'm very happy and very moved to be here for that. Just a few words to tell you that I will be tomorrow at the Nova exhibition, which is an incredible initiative. As soon as I knew that this existed in Los Angeles, I rushed from Paris. I wanted to be there, and I accepted the invitation of the Nova exhibition invitation to speak, which I do tomorrow at 6. There are two great homages to our hostages in Los Angeles. The first homage is this one, these empty seats, not completely empty, full of memory, full of spirit, full of hope. It is the first time I see that in a synagogue. Honestly, I did not see it in France. And it's a great initiative, as is a great initiative this Nova exhibition, which I will discover tomorrow, I hope with you. And you are, all of you, invited. It is a free entrance. I think it is a very big hall where I will deliver my speech or have my conversation with Alana Newhouse, so you are all invited. And as Rabbi Sherman told you, it happens that I just published yesterday. It's very fresh. The English, the American translation of my last book, Israel Alone. In French, it was entitled Solitude of Israel, Solitude Israel. In English, Israel Alone, which is the same. As Rabbi Sherman told you, this book, in a few words, you will listen tomorrow more. I will expand more. But this book took its origin really on October 8th. I would have liked to be in the kibbutzim on October 7. And to be honest, in the evening of October 7, as soon as I heard the news of the unprecedented massacre since 80 years of Jews in the earth of Israel, I decided to go. It was not very easy. All the companies canceled their flights, except El Al, except some private companies. Anyway, I did my best to be there on the ground on the 8th of October. There was still some fighting in the south of Israel. There were still some terrorists alive in Sderot. When I entered in the kibbutz of Kfar Aza, there was also still fighting, ambushes. I was with the brave soldiers of IDF whom you can see in photo in the Jewish Journal. I was with them, and it was still, at that minute, a very heavy fight. So my decision was taken at this minute. I wrote so many books in my life, books of philosophy, books of literature. I defended human rights in every latitude. I wrote books about the genocide in Rwanda. I wrote a reportage about Darfur. I wrote at length entire books about all the forgotten wars which happened, forgotten and huge wars which happened in the world. And suddenly, last October 8, I decided that what happened was so huge, so unprecedented, so impossible to expect. It was so much a sort of dividing line between a past and a future which would be never the same, that I had rendezvous with Israel and with this book. And as you said, I know Israel not so bad. My first trip there was in 1967, at the end of the War of the 6 Days. I was in Israel during every war which Israel had to wage for its existence. I met all prime ministers since Golda Meir to the current prime minister, going through my dear friends Shimon Peretz and Yitzhak Rabin. So I know Israel, and I knew on October 7 and 8 that something huge was happening, that it was going to change, it might change the Jewish destiny, that it was probably the biggest threat that Israel had to face in its short history as a state, and I wanted to tell that. So the book is, first of all, this. What happened on October 7? What is the political, metaphysical importance of that event? Why does it divide into two the history of Israel and of all Jews of the world? And then I wrote this book, and I will finish with that. I wrote this book also in a state of anger and of rage, because I saw the ashes of the kibbutzim still hot. I spent nights with the families of the hostages who are still waiting now. I was so deeply moved by that suffering and this mass crime, and I heard all over the world, in France, in America, in the UN, in the Global South, I heard a very strange whisper, a very strange motto growing on, and after, I don't know, they did not even let the victims or the survivors or the family of the victims, not even a few days to make their mourning. Immediately, there was a sort of outburst, a blast of anti-Semitism, which really whipped off a big part of the planet. And this, for me, was a very, very deep mystery. A huge event happened. What was this event? And suddenly, a second event happened, which consisted in eradicating, forgetting the first one. Why? What was at stake? What were the workings of this strange reaction, so cruel, of a big part of the international community? And why was Israel suddenly so alone among the nations? And very soon also, I heard, like you, I heard all the old arguments of the hate, they were, till then, they were sort of contained. They were shied, maybe. And suddenly there was no shyness, no containment. And all the worst arguments of the hate suddenly came out of the box. And I wrote the book, Israel Alone, as another box, as an antidote to the box of demons, a box of tools to reply, to retaliate intellectually, and to resist. In this book, I hope, you will find a few tools to reply to those. And I'm not speaking about politics. Each of us can have their position on the domestic policy of Israel. As for myself, I am a liberal since 50 years and more than ever, a liberal in the English sense. So it's not that question. But I wrote this book in order to reply to those who say, like donkeys, on and on, that Israel is a colonial state. I reply precisely to that. I reply precisely, concretely, to those who say on and on that Israel is a state based on apartheid. I explain, I hope, in a cold, logical way, why this accusation is not only false, but absurd, silly, crazy, moronic. I try to explain to those who still don't seem to get it, why Israel had to be created, was created, and why Israel is so important, so much at the core of the humanity of today. And I explain why a world without Israel, or with an Israel weakened, why this world would be a very bad one, at the verge of unprecedented disasters. So this is this book, Israel Alone, a praise of Israel, a chant of love for Israel, a confrontation from my point of view, which is, again, a liberal one. I believe in human rights. I believe in freedom. I believe that all victims are equal. My heart bleeds when I see a Palestinian victim innocent. Also, I explain all of that, and I try to establish the responsibilities of that, to explain what are the ways out. As I say in the Jewish Journal, I'm convinced that it is the two targets, two military and moral targets of Israel today: liberate the hostage and prevent the Hamas to start again the same sort of bloodbath. I explain why they are compatible. It is the most difficult war which Israel had ever to wage. Liberate the hostage and destroy the military skeleton of the Hamas. And at the same time, confront what the head of the octopus, of which the Hamas is just a tentacle. It's a very big deal. It's the most difficult war which was ever waged by Israel. Because Hamas, as I explain it also in a chapter of the book called The Empire of Hamas, Hamas is not just a little piece of earth. It is a part of a huge international organization with Iran, with Russia, with North Korea, and so on. But I'm convinced, and I say why in this book, that to win this war, to contain again the forces which are creating evil all over the area, including in their own people and own countries like Iran, and liberate the baby Kafir, who was an empty seat here, and all the other hostages, how all of this is doable, and how I'm convinced that if we are enough numerous, if we are enough vocal to convince our governments to take side with Israel, all these battles will be won. I have some experience. I saw a lot of wars in Israel and outside elsewhere. I know that it will win, provided that if the West, the natural allies of Israel, take side with Israel, engage in this, alas, just war. Meet you tomorrow at the Nova exhibition. Thank you.
We hope you join tomorrow at the Nova exhibition. Also, make sure you receive your copy of Israel Alone. We can't do our job without these amazing intellectuals like Bernard-Henri Lévy. We rise for the Musaf service.